everyone, Alyssa Lytle here with Flowering Minds. I am so happy to be here with Mayesh to talk to you about some of my favorite mechanics that you can find at most hardware stores. I like these mechanics because they're all reusable and they're really easy to find. So the first one is this little guy. This cage is generally meant to hold birdseed, and it's called a suet cage. But what I like to use it for, I'm sure you can guess, is a replacement for chicken wire. It's a lot more stable than chicken wire when it's holding weight of flowers. You can stuff it with wet moss, you can put agar wool in it, you can expand an ocean pouch within it, and then you just wire it shut and attach it to the structure you're designing on, and it holds really, really well. Keeps its shape no matter what. I've had this one for years, and it just has a little bit of wear and tear. So highly recommend grabbing some of these for your large installations. The next mechanic I like to use is wire shelving. You can get this in different lengths, different depths, and what I like to do is to take two pieces and sandwich them together and stuff it either with moss or wood excelsior, or if you need a water source, agar wool or ocean pouches. And you can hang this. I've suspended these above head tables, kind of extending the length with flowers hanging down or being, lushly designed on the top and the bottom. I've also used larger versions of these to create makeshift walls for events that you can then have an easy floral wall that you can bring in sections. So you don't have some massive wall you have to deliver. You can bring sections of flowers and install it there on the wall. The last mechanic I'm going to show you today is the PEX pipe. You can find it in the plumbing section of your hardware store, and what I like to use this for is to create armatures because it's semi-rigid but it's still pliable. Therefore, it will hold under the weight of flowers and mechanics. So anytime you need to create an armature, keep in mind the PEX pipe. Okay, now I'm going to get started in creating a floral tapestry using the shelving, the PEX pipe, some chicken wire, wood excelsior, and a few other items. Let's get started. So here I am creating a floral tapestry, which I started off with a base of those two shelves that I sandwiched together with wood excelsior between, hanging from a piece of wood. And from there, I am hanging some different shapes I created with PEX pipe, chicken wire, and wood excelsior. You could also fill these shapes with moss. You could soak the moss with water. You could also soak the wood excelsior with water. Or you could put in agar wool, which comes in thinner sheets and can be soaked in water. It's a little tricky to hang these shapes by myself, so my husband stepped into frame to help me hold them. He is generally the person behind the camera. So I'm deciding to put these shapes kind of as I go. I'm feeling it out. I had a rough idea of the design, but nothing beats seeing it in person. I strung a slew of spider Gerber daisies, which created this fringy flower string that we just draped. And now I am adding in allium. I really wanted this to feel like a tapestry, so I chose flowers that are really, really textural and that I was planning on grouping together to create that kind of fabric-like texture. So I am just going from section to section, cutting the flowers fairly short, so there's not a lot sticking out in the back, and the wood excelsior is holding them really, really well, especially since you've got chicken wire, you've got those rigid wire shelves. And now I am adding the anthurium. And whenever I'm adding flowers, I tend to want to add them all going in the same direction. Whenever I'm wanting to create kind of a pattern texture. And I'm trying to make sure that that bottom chicken wire shape is kind of imperfect. I didn't want it to feel like a really rigid rectangle. So here I'm adding a cluster of calla lilies, which were inspired by some real tapestries I saw, some actual textiles, where they had knitted these little tubes. And so there were these little like fabric tubes clusters of fabric tubes coming out of the tapestry. Kind of reminded me of calla lilies, so that is how I was inspired to cluster these together in a few different areas. I had originally thought that this whole panel would be white and that most of it would be white, but as I was designing it, I wasn't loving how blocky this upper white rectangle was feeling. So as you'll see in a moment, I start deconstructing everything I'm doing right now. So I started adding the spider daisies because I think they're a really beautiful flower with the black middle and the frilly white petals. But as I was standing back and seeing it, I wasn't loving the black polka dots. So I started inserting them more at an angle. So you were more seeing just the frilliness of the petals. So this is around the time I decided to start adding more contrast. The white on white on white just was not cutting it. I wasn't loving it. So I started sprinkling in some darker accents. And this continues to progress as I realize I'm liking more of the contrast than all of the light colors. Now here I'm attempting to break up that rectangular white shape at the very top. Not loving it. I mean, it's completely normal when you're designing to just be disgusted at your design at times. It's just part of being an artist. You can get really uncomfortable, really frustrated. You could just want to walk away, or you just don't see how it's going to recover. And honestly, I was feeling a little bit like that around this time. I was just thinking, this is not coming along how I envisioned. But as I'm adding more contrast, breaking up the shapes, and I'm also getting input from Brian and my assistant for this day that was so valuable. Just two people from the outside watching, telling me what they were seeing is so invaluable when you're designing an installation. So major shout out to Brian and Ray for helping me see what in the heck was going on with this tapestry and helping me bring it together. So the very last step here was I felt like the lower left area was feeling really unfinished, and the whole design, I was liking it, but it just didn't have the balance that I wanted it to have. And so I ended up stringing more spider daisies together, and now we are just attaching them to the bottom left. And I alternated how they were strung, so the stems themselves kept them a little bit separated. That's why you see some gaps instead of a really, really thick, dense string of flowers. So here is the final design. This is something I could see being used for a ceremony, hanging as a backdrop, behind a bar, for a photo backdrop at an event. I can see this being used in a lot of different ways at events. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you would like to see more, you can head on over to www.floweringminds.education. All right, until next time.